Little mic check. You guys can hear me okay? I am broadcasting from the mayor's office on my iPad this evening, so it's going to be a little bit different.
I can hear you.
Great, thank you.
Mayor Engen, do you have all of your meeting controls on your iPad, or if you need assistance, just holler?
I sure will, Marty. Thank you. I'm not altogether sure at the moment, but I'm hoping that's the case.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. And it is 6 o'clock, and I will call the Missoula City Council meeting of November 8th, 2021 to order. This is a Zoom webinar. You've seen plenty of instructions and heard plenty of instructions over time on how to join and participate. We hope that you indeed will. For the record this evening, all council members are present according to my list, but for Mr. Von Lossberg, Ms. West, and Ms. Merritt. Does that seem correct to all of you? All right, with that, we have minutes to approve from our last meeting. Without objection, they will stand approved. Seeing none, we will move on to our schedule of committee meetings. Ms. Rabine.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're setting up our committee meetings for this coming Wednesday. All of our committee meetings are being held via Zoom webinar. I'm going to give a little navigation. I'll share my screen here about how you can navigate our website, get to our committee schedule and all of our agendas. Here we go. If you Google City of Missoula, you'll happen upon our City of Missoula webpage is probably your first search result. Below a big picture here in the middle, there's some buttons, and you'll want to press this meetings button that's right here. Our committee schedule is right here at the top. It says most recent committee schedule, or you can also slide on down here to the calendar view and look at all of the meetings here. When you open up an agenda, for example, here's the Public Works agenda. It says agenda here. The links are right behind it. There's an HTML link and a PDF link. And if you click on that link, it will open up the committee agenda. It has all the instructions and a link to join the webinar by computer if you wish. Phone numbers to call in with the webinar ID and password. If you do not want to join our meetings, you just want to watch, you can watch our live stream. There's a link here. You can watch YouTube, or you can also turn in to MCAT, who covers us live on Spectrum Cable Channel 190. Let's go to that committee schedule and talk about what this week's meetings have in store for us. City Council committee meetings will be held this coming Wednesday, November 10th. I'm going to make my screen just a tiny bit bigger here in the hopes that folks can read it. The Public Works Committee will meet from 9 until 10:30. They'll be taking up a resolution with respect to fees for stormwater, wastewater, and water rates for the city's utility system. And they'll also be considering a resolution to amend some existing fees. So a rate schedule as well as fee changes there in Public Works from 9 o'clock to 10:30. Public Safety and Health Committee meets from 10:45 to 11:05 in the morning. They will be taking up the confirmation of police officers. Those are police officers, even though it just says confirm officers. And looking at a purchase of some decontamination equipment. The Administration and Finance Committee will be considering a mayoral appointment to the TBID, or the Tourism Business Improvement District, an amendment to a contract with respect to emergency winter shelter operations. There is an update on the Scott Street property project from Ravara, which is the developer. There is an ordinance with respect to continuous residency, amending the continuous residency requirements for certain city officers and department heads. And there is a resolution with respect to some bonding that we're doing for the stormwater system and the city's stop loss insurance for our health insurance plan. Parks and Conservation will meet from 1:25 to 1:45. We'll be taking up an agreement about the administration of West Side Park, land and water conservation fund grants. City received a grant and there's an agreement that goes with it. Transportation alternatives for the pavement preservation grant agreement that the Parks Department has received. Finally, the Land Use and Planning Committee will round out the day. They're meeting from 2 o'clock to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And the first thing they'll be considering is a rezoning request for the Mill Site Special Zoning District. It's an amendment to that district. And they'll also be considering the recreational marijuana ordinance. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Are there any changes to the committee schedule this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the public comment portion of our agenda. This is your opportunity to comment on items not elsewhere on our agenda this evening. And I'm looking for any hands in the attendees box, and it is working. And I have Tyler Steinbach, and you should be able to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Tyler Steinbach. I live here in Missoula, and I am actually the executive director of a drop-in center here in Missoula that works with those that are experiencing homelessness and behavioral health concerns, as well as I serve on as a co-chair of the board that Western Service Area Authority, which helps the Department of Public Health plan and oversee behavioral health services and grants from the state down. And so from both perspectives, I just wanted to, I guess, let you guys know that we've had some concerns brought to us at our board meetings and public comment regarding the warming shelter policies as far as who's being kept out of the facility. And there's some medical concerns that aren't being considered by the current process. And that's the agencies aren't being involved in like the decision making as far as who's allowed to stay there or not that would know that information. So I just wanted to, I guess, put it out there that I would like to speak with somebody and maybe get it on next month's council agenda. If you guys want to get a hold of me, I can definitely get my information to the mayor, somebody of that area. They can get it to you guys. But I very much plan to follow up with this. It's on our agenda for our Service Area Authority board meeting this Wednesday. To recommend to the department that they take action. It was also brought up today during our meeting with the Behavioral Health Advisory Council with the state and the ombudsman that they considered it an urgent matter that needs to be taken into consideration immediately. So we will be meeting with them in the coming days. So I just hope that we can come to something that's more humane for people living out there on the streets, especially the ones that are, well, not able to take care of themselves. So I appreciate the time to comment and have a good night, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steinbach. I'm in receipt of your email and we'll reach out with staff and begin that conversation. We've worked long and hard with our partners at the POV and hope that our policies and procedures reflect best practices, but we are more than happy to have a further conversation about that. So we'll make sure that that happens. And thanks for your comments this evening. Any other public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda, which is brief tonight. That agenda has been approved unanimously in council committees, and we save a little time by considering these items all at once on Monday evenings. Ms. Rabine will read the list aloud. We'll take comment on items before we vote. Ms. Rabine.
And just before we get started with our great big consent agenda of one item, I just want to note for the record that Ms. West is here. And our one item tonight is to approve accounts payable in the amount of $1,229,182.70. for checks that are dated tomorrow, November 9th, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Ms. West is indeed here. Questions or comments from council members? Mr. Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not be supporting the item before us because of about $4,500 going to the legal bills from Mountain Water.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other comment? All right, anyone among our attendees care to comment this evening? Seeing none there, we'll have a roll call vote.
Thanks. On the consent agenda, Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
No.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Ramos,
No.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
No.
and West.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 7 ayes, 3 nays, and 2 absent.
And the consent agenda is approved. We have no comments from city staff, agencies, boards, commissions, or authorities, nor the community forum this evening. We don't have any special presentations. We do have 2 public hearings. Those hearings, pardon me, are established by state law and council rules to hear from the folks we serve on a variety of items in a formal way. And following a staff report on each of these items, council will invite comment, as will I. We are keeping these public hearings open for a week following the staff presentation. In the age of COVID, and council will take these items up for final consideration at their next regular meeting, generally speaking. Our first public hearing this evening is on funding recommendation for an Affordable Housing Trust Fund Innovation Funding Round and a triannual housing trust fund update. And that's a lot. And our staff report comes from the intrepid Emily Harris-Shears this evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm just sharing the funding recommendation tonight. The update was shared in committee.
Oh, thank you.
So sorry you had to do that mouthful.
I get paid. It's okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share a PowerPoint and I don't see it. So let me.
While Emily's doing that, can I just ask we promote Sam Hilliard from the attendee list to a presenter? Thanks so much.
Got that, Marty?
I do. And it's
Thank
good.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Emily. So hi, I'm Emily Harris-Shears. I'm the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Administrator with Community Planning, Development, and Innovation. And today I'm sharing a funding recommendation for the Innovation Funding Round from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I'm going to put this in full screen. I'm assuming you can see my presentation. Okay, great. So as background, the Innovation Round was the first funding round administered by the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And the Innovation Round was open from August 23rd through September 24th. The Affordable Housing Resident Oversight Committee approved the vision and allocated up to $300,000 to be awarded to projects to preserve or increase affordable housing in Missoula. And just to run over some of the other specifics, we are able to make awards to nonprofit and for-profit organizations, to new and in-process projects, and we plan and hope to make awards through grants and loans. And this round was a precursor to the Unified Application Round that will include Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Funds, which will be released in the winter of 2022. So I'd like to just take a moment and clarify some inaccuracies that have been circulating about the application process. Engage Missoula was utilized as a resource to retrieve documents and access information as well as submit questions, but it was not considered the application portal. Materials could be retrieved and information could be accessed without signing in, and applications were submitted through the City Cloud, which is a process that we've used for grant submissions in previous city grant making. A funding workshop was hosted on August 25th, and the application vision, process, timelines, and scoring criteria were reviewed. The scoring criteria was shared as a document with the application materials, and all applicants had access to it. It was the first time in our funding rounds that we've included such a detailed scoring rubric, and we plan to do that in the future. And it also provided technical assistance through online meetings, phone calls, and email correspondence for all 3 projects prior to the close of the round. So the values of the housing policy centered the innovation round, and the application materials and scoring criteria were created from this values lens of diversity, innovation, collaboration, and achievability. The innovation round provided us with several opportunities, including the opportunity to respond to community need now, to test process with the oversight committee, including setting the reserve balance in preparation for the allocation plan, and to refine the application approach, as well as test and hone the Affordable Housing Trust Fund policies and procedures. It also allowed us the opportunity to begin building relationships with prospective and new awardees and recipients, which is a great bonus. So the first round, we received 3 project proposals, and the total funds requested exceeded the available allocation by $145,250. The 3 projects were different in type and scope. All requests were for grants, and we received applications for construction, consumer housing services, and homeownership acquisition and housing preservation. All 3 applications were scored using a consistent rubric that was published with the application materials, and an 8-member scoring committee reviewed applications and made recommendations. This is a staff scoring committee that also included Councilmember Becerra and then representatives from community planning, development, and innovation. The scoring committee discussed application strengths, reviewed questions and concerns, and they developed 3 funding scenarios, including awarding partial funding and requesting more information from applicants as a way of follow-up before making the decision. All 3 scenarios included fully funding the United Way's Centralized Housing Solutions Fund. And the scoring committee voted on the 3 scenarios and ultimately did not recommend the remaining 2 projects because of concerns about project design, feasibility, and impact and outcomes of the requested investment. The scoring committee discussed the importance of being good stewards of public funds while balancing that with the demands and realities of our current housing market. And the scoring committee arrived at the decision to recommend 1 project for funding and provide feedback and encourage remaining applicants to consider applying again in the unified application round this winter. Applicants not recommended for funding were offered a follow-up debrief with me to review application feedback and opportunities for strengthening submissions for future rounds. And I've had 1 meeting of that type so far. And the scoring committee elevated 1 project, the United Way's Centralized Housing Solutions Fund, to recommend for funding. The Centralized Housing Solutions Fund, which is an existing community asset, is a flexible financial assistance fund used to quickly reconnect households to housing solutions and away from houselessness system in Missoula. The $26,250 grant will support 70 individuals with reconnection to housing. And it's estimated that 95% of people served by the Centralized Housing Solutions Fund have incomes at or below 50% of the area median income. The scoring committee elevated this project for funding because they feel that's a proven model that responds to individuals' needs and is an evidence-based strategy. It supports diversion, which is a key component of the houselessness response system, and it demonstrated readiness to implement quickly. The committee also elevated that this approach is a useful response to COVID-19 and the importance of diverting people from crowded shelters and other places where they may be staying, which is always of importance, but has an additional layer of vitality right now. And the $23,000, the $273,250 that was not allocated during this award cycle will remain in the balance of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and will be available for award making in the unified application round, which will open in the winter of 2022. So the motion for the close of the public hearing next week is up on the slide, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And Sam Hilliard from the Missoula Coordinated Entry System, which supports the Centralized Housing Solution Fund implementation, is also here if there are specific program questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, I am happy to open the public hearing. Is anyone interested in commenting on the recommended motion to fund this United Way program? And as I look in our attendees window, I see no hands raised. With that, are there questions from council members? And Ms. Cheryl.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Emily, and I appreciate all the work on this. I'm very excited that we've got this up and running. This is a great thing for our community. And I recognize that this is just the innovation round, so I want to start there. I mean, we're figuring out how to run this, and I appreciate all the metrics that you are using. I do have a question. You know, I feel like I'm always kind of thinking about being the steward of public funds, and when we partner with anyone, I know, you know, we're obviously thinking about the factors of that whether they can deliver what we've asked them to do or what they've asked for funding for. So and this has nothing to do with the applicants as they stand that you went over. I'm just thinking about the future and what are the things that we're looking at for the nonprofits, for profits. I mean, what are the factors that we're looking at for those organizations to make sure they can deliver on their promise as we allocate public funds for those organizations?
Great question. There are a couple of things that come to mind. So we begin to assess that through the application by asking about the project design, the experience of implementing a project like this, the readiness and timeliness that we measure the readiness and timeliness that the applicant demonstrates through their timeline, their goals, what they expect to accomplish, and then also through the budget. And then we also have a monitoring process set in place that with grantees or awardees will do monitoring each year of projects in the portfolio so that we can continue to keep that relationship and know where projects are and how they're doing in their implementation. And that also comes into their quarterly reports that they'll submit, where we'll have oversight there as well as an opportunity to connect back with them and provide technical assistance and support and really ensure that if we can support the project meeting its goals and deliverables, that it does as well. So we have a few touch points throughout the process to know and to support grantees or awardees.
May I have a follow-up?
Certainly.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Emily. I appreciate that. When you say quarterly, you're talking about quarterly reports on the project that we funded. Is that correct?
That's right.
Are we looking at any of the financials for these organizations? Like, how are we assessing the, how are we making an assessment of their kind of viability and ability to continue and do what they?
Yes, great question again. So we do have a few ways to do that as well. In the application, we request that organizations that are required to have an audit submit that, or organizations that are not submit their 990 and the financial, a recent financial record or ledger. And then we also, in the monitoring process, we wrote a policy that says that we can request their most recent audit at any time. We're not requiring them to give it to us annually, but we can request it at any time. So if we, and they have, I think it's like 45 or 90 days to get it to us. And then we have the, because we're collecting financial reports quarterly, we'll also have the opportunity to monitor those. And if there are questions or concerns with what's being claimed, we have a follow-up there as well.
Great, thank you, thank you. I just think having run a nonprofit, I think it's really important that we're looking at all those financial factors moving forward for city funds. Thank.
All right, seeing no further questions, this item will remain open for public comment through the week and will be considered finally at council's next meeting. Our second public hearing tonight is on a rezoning ordinance that amends the mill site special zoning district. And Ms. Gluckin has our report this evening.
Hi there, let me just bring up my presentation. There we go. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Emily Gluckin, and I'm an associate planner with the Development Services Division of Community Planning, Development, and Innovation. I will be presenting a request from Don MacArthur of MMW Architects on behalf of Mill Site Revitalization Project, LLC, to amend the standards of the Mill Site Special Zoning District. The subject property is located south of the Clark Fork River and north of the Milwaukee Trail between California and Hickory Streets, more broadly between Russell and Orange Streets. And it is in the Riverfront Neighborhood Council, Riverhead Neighborhood Council and City Council Ward 3. Zooming in a little bit, the Mill Site Special Zoning District covers 46.59 acres. The existing and constructed portions of the special district are currently accessed from Wyoming Street. In a few slides, I'll go into a little bit more detail about the subdivision and the requirements of the special district. But first, I'll take you through some analysis. The Missoula 2035 growth policy recommends a land use designation of community mixed use. And this is for the majority of the mill site. And then a parks and open lands designation for the northern portion of the mill site that contains Silver Park. Areas designated as community mixed use are intended to integrate basic employment and services with main transportation corridors. They are characterized by a broad range of functions that include retail, education, financial institutions, professional and personal services, offices, residences, and general service activities. And the zoning districts most closely aligned with this land use designation are C1-4 neighborhood commercial, C2-4 community commercial, and M1R2 limited industrial and residential. And then for the portion that's parks and open space or open lands, these areas are intended for larger parks that are typically in public ownership or larger common areas that are intended for use by a group of residents or also larger conservation lands. And the growth policy recommends OP1 open space as the relatable zoning district. In addition to the land use designations, staff reviewed the goals outlined in the chapters of the growth policy and identified a number of them that relate to this proposal. The economic health chapter encourages a dynamic mix of businesses, housing, and retail in the downtown area that contributes to the economic vitality of Missoula's urban core. The housing chapter encourages the promotion of live-work opportunities through mixed-use developments. And the community design chapter describes the city's focus inward approach to development, which promotes pedestrian-oriented mixed-use development which allows a range of residential, retail, artisan, and commercial uses to be located in close proximity to each other. The Mill Site Special Zoning District is also located within the 2019 Missoula Downtown Master Plan boundaries. And this refers to the Mill Site Special Zoning District as the Old Sawmill District, as some may be familiar with calling that area. This plan states that a mix of residential and commercial uses are appropriate within the neighborhood. A wide range of housing densities and scales, and ownership and rental opportunities should be encouraged. And further, it describes the Old Sawmill District as the next tech hub that can draw in new tech industry and build upon the existing amenities for tech workers that's already in the area. Lastly, it also encourages new mixed-use development on the north side of Wyoming Street to continue the strengths of the mixed-use developments on the south side of Wyoming Street that currently exist. One more layer of this, the Mill Site Special Zoning District is located within the Southside Riverfront Planning Area. And this is documented in the Southside Riverfront Area Comprehensive Plan Amendment that was published in 2000 and encourages a mix of residential and commercial uses in the mill site area, as well as establishing it as a neighborhood center. And the intent statement of the Mill Site Special Zoning District Ordinance states that the intent of the special district is to emulate and build on the Southside Riverfront Area Comprehensive Plan Amendment by providing a mixture of land uses, including civic, general commercial, office, retail, service, and residential in a pedestrian-friendly design. Mixed use options that are encouraged by this plan include commercial uses at the street level, with residential uses at the second level and above. It also encourages residential uses adjacent to commercial uses. So following the analysis of these three documents, staff found that the proposed expansion of allowed uses will continue to reflect the goals for mixed use development in the Old Sawmill District that were identified in the growth policy, downtown master plan, and the Southside Riverfront Area Comprehensive Plan Amendment. And this will be done by, it'll continue to contribute to the economic vitality of the area while continuing to promote a pedestrian-oriented pattern of development in the district. The Mill Site Special Zoning District is regulated by a zoning ordinance that prescribes specific standards for that district only. And this is shown as the hatched area on the map. The surrounding zoning districts include industrial zoning to the north and east, public lands and institutional zoning to the south and east, and business, commercial, and a mix of medium and low density residential zoning districts to the west. And just for a little bit of context, the Mill Site Special Zoning District is surrounded by a mixture of public parks, public trails, community centers, governmental offices, multi-dwelling residential, and single detached residential uses. And it's also bordered to the east by the railroad tracks. So what you're seeing right now is a final plat for the subdivision. This property was originally subdivided in 2007 to create the Mill Site subdivision. And at this time, it was the property was rezoned to the Mill Site Special Zoning District. In 2009, 2012, and 2014, City Council approved amendments to the phasing plan for the Mill Site subdivision. And the 2014 phasing plan includes 11 phases with a final deadline of December 31st, 2025 for all of the final plats of all phases to be submitted for approval. The Phase 1 Wyoming North final plat, which is what you're seeing on the screen, was filed in May 2015. And no other final plats have been filed for the other phases of the subdivision at this time. In 2013, City Council approved amendments to the original Mill Site Special Zoning District. And these amendments included updating the zoning to reference Title 20 standards, among a number of other amendments to the language of the ordinance. And this is the current zoning ordinance that's used to govern this district. And the Millsite Special Zoning District standards are divided into 6 sub-district sections, which are A, B/C, D, E/F, G, and H/H-1/H-2, or 1.1. The ordinance begins with general development standards that generally apply to projects within this district. And these include standards for setbacks, build 2 lines, architecture, building heights, lighting, loading and unloading, parking, sidewalk, cafes, common areas, landscaping, hardscaping, and on-premises liquor, wine, or beer sales. And then further, the specific standards for each sub-district provide unique requirements that may supersede the general development standards in some cases. So tonight, specifically, we are talking about Subdistrict B/C, and that's the location of the proposed amendment that we're discussing this evening. It is bordered by Subdistrict H to the north, H-1 to the east, and H-2 to the west. And all of these are parks and open space districts. And then it is bordered by Subdistrict D to the south across Wyoming, which is a primarily residential district with some commercial uses allowed. The Subdistrict B/C is in between Wyoming Street, Moose Creek Trail, and Silver Parkway. And the northern sections of Moose Creek Trail and Silver Parkway are associated with future phases of the Millsite subdivision and are not yet constructed. This subdistrict is in an area intended for a mixture of commercial and multi-dwelling residential uses. And residential uses are only permitted on the 2nd story and above. Detached houses and 2-unit houses are prohibited in this specific district. Subdistrict B/C currently has a restricted use area on the street level along Moose Creek Trail between Wyoming Street and Silver Parkway, and then also along Silver Parkway between Moose Creek Trail and Big Timber Lane. And this specific area is shown in orange on the screen, where only specific uses are permitted. And these specific uses include restaurants and cafes, restaurants with a cabaret license, taverns or nightclubs, retail trade, and sidewalk cafes. This is a lot of text on the screen, but I'll distill it down. The applicant is requesting to remove this restricted use area from the standards of Subdistrict B/C with this proposed amendment. It's essentially striking out item number 3 that's listed in the ordinance right now. And the removal of this item will also require the renumbering of the following items after that are specific to Subdistrict B/C as they're listed in the ordinance. This table demonstrates the uses that are currently permitted in the remainder of Subdistrict B/C outside of that restricted use area, which would be allowed following the proposed amendment in the area that currently has that use restriction. You can see highlighted in blue that the uses currently permitted in that restricted use area would still be permitted following this change, with a wider range of uses also allowed. It is worth noting that any proposed uses in this area will need to comply with the off-street parking schedule in Title 20 and the parking requirements for specific uses outlined in the special district, along with any other relevant zoning requirements. As part of this review, staff examined this application using the review criteria for rezone requests in Title 20 and found that it complies with this criteria based on the following conclusions. First, in relation to criteria 1A, the rezone request complies with the economic health, housing, community design, and community mixed use goals of the growth policy, as well as the goals for the downtown master plan and the Southside Riverfront area comprehensive plan amendment. Second, in relation to criteria 1B and 1C, staff found that public health and safety from fire and other dangers are ensured through the availability of emergency services, law enforcement, and fire protection in the area. For criteria 1D and 1F, the property is in an area adequately served by sewer, water, stormwater facilities, motorized and non-motorized transportation infrastructure, parks, and schools. For criteria 1E, the proposed amendment would maintain the building setbacks, height, and green space requirements of the mill site zoning district, and will continue to facilitate the provision of light and air. Fifth, in relation to criteria 1G and 1H, the proposed amendment will retain the mixed-use pedestrian-friendly pattern of urban growth and character that was intended for this district, for the mill site. And in relation to 1I and criteria number 2, staff found that the rezone will provide opportunities to conserve the value of the buildings and as well as address a changing condition by allowing the existence of non-residential uses that can be supported by current market conditions as well as fluctuations in market conditions over time, thereby preventing vacancies. And finally, for criteria number 3, staff found that the proposed amendment is in the best interest of the city as a whole because it will continue to promote mixed-use development and economic opportunities in a high-density environment that's in close proximity to downtown Missoula. At this time, staff has received 3 public comments that raise concerns about the vagueness of the request and an unclear intent for the relaxation of the use or current use restrictions, as well as concern about a change in expected development over the lifespan of this subdivision. Staff received 1 agency comment from Aaron Wilson of the Transportation Division of Public Works and Mobility. His comment was stating that the change to remove the use restriction on the ground floor is consistent with city goals for mixed use and walkable neighborhoods. However, his division encourages the acceleration of the installation of the traffic signal at Craig and Orange Street to keep up with expanding development in the district. On Tuesday, October 19th, this was heard before Planning Board, and Planning Board voted to recommend approval of the rezone request with 6 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. Topics that came up as part of the Planning Board hearing discussion included a clarification of the reasoning of the requested change, clarification of the types of uses that would be allowed following the proposed amendment, and concern over the potential need for zoning changes as future phases of the subdivision are filed, as well as the impact that future development will have on traffic on Wyoming Street. And this Planning Board summary is available as part of the record for this project. To conclude, staff recommends the adoption of an ordinance to amend the standards of the Mill Site Special District to remove the use restrictions on Moose Creek Trail and Silver Parkway in Subdistrict BC. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Ms. Gluckin. And with that, I will open the public hearing. And anyone among the attendees care to comment this evening? Seeing no hands raised there, are there questions or comments from council members this evening? Seeing none, once again, this item will remain open for public comment until council considers this finally. This next meeting, we have no additional public hearings this evening. We do have 1 item for final consideration. These items were heard in public hearing, and council this evening will take final action on the proposal before the body. In this case, we have 1 item, and that is for an application for a cable franchise. We had a presentation last week from Mr. Nugent, and that motion will come from Ms. Jones this evening, please.
Yes, thank you. I would like to make the recommended motion that we adopt a resolution of the Missoula City Council regarding application of TDS Metrocom LLC for a cable franchise, and I would like to speak to it at the right time.
Ms. Jones.
Okay, thanks. I always get a little confused with public comment. I'll just speak briefly to this. We've had some very extensive presentations from our city attorney, Jim Nugent. This is the first time in many years, I think, that we've had an applicant for a cable franchise. My understanding is that our decision space basically hinges on, under federal law, we may not unreasonably refuse to award an additional competitive franchise. So that's why the information presented by City Attorney Jim Nugent spoke to the fact that in the application, TDS runs cable franchises in 12 other states. They've got assets. They basically are positioned to do this. So in my mind, it's reasonable to award it, but also I think it would be good to have some competition here in Missoula for cable franchises. So I'm in favor of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Additional discussion, Ms. Vasika.
Thanks. I also am in favor of this. First of all, I don't think that this should go in front of the council. I think that competition should be widely welcome without having to get the city's approval. But because not only does competition drive costs down and increase wages and increase customer service, I think it's a great thing to bring into the city. So I am absolutely in support of this motion.
Further discussion on the motion? See none. Anyone in the audience this evening care to comment? Seeing none there, we will have a roll call vote.
Okay, on the cable franchise resolution, Becerra.
Yes.
Contos.
Yes.
Herb.
Yes.
Hess.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Vasika.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That's 10 ayes and 2 absent.
And the motion is approved. We have no additional items for final consideration. With regard to communications from the mayor, I will simply say thanks to all who participated in our municipal election last week. Doesn't matter whether you voted for me or the other person, the fact that you voted is a big deal, and I am grateful to you. The fact that a majority of you voted for me makes me even more grateful, and I am delighted to have the opportunity to continue this service with you. I'd like to congratulate the newly elected and re-elected folks, and offer my appreciation to the folks who ran hard, and were willing to step up for their community to do a difficult job. And for the folks who didn't face election, thank you for doing the work. We'll begin council comments this evening with Mr. Hess. Jordan.
I apologize. My internet cut out momentarily. I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Hart.
Thank you. Congratulations on your election, Mayor. Really very proud that you are going to be leading the city again for another 4 years. Would like to also announce that Habitat for Humanity and the League of Women Voters will be co-sponsoring a panel on the next steps on the affordable housing continuum with Jordan Lyons from Missoula County, as well as Emily Harris Shears from the city. Next week, November 16th, which is a Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. It will be a Zoom webinar, an opportunity for folks to learn more about what all of our agencies are working together collaboratively to move the needle forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
I'll pass. Thank you.
Mr. Contos.
Yes, thank you. I did a ride along with some police officers last Friday, and that was a real eye opener. We have an amazing police force, and I was just totally impressed at how considerate they are with people that they encounter throughout the evening. It was very good. Something else too I wanted to share. A couple of weeks ago, I was listening to the radio, which I don't do very often, but it was a John Tesh piece. And he was talking about the results of families who have their children do chores. And 1 out of 4 families have their children do chores. That really shocked me. I thought it would have been a 4 out of 4, or at least 3 out of 4. And then he was talking about the results of these kids who do chores, how well they do later on in life. They typically do better in school. They're better with math. They typically go on to college. They have a better self-concept of themselves. They're calmer. That didn't work for me, but it did say there were calmer people. And I thought that is absolutely amazing. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. I was kind of shocked that it was 1 out of 4 that have their children do chores. Thank you.
Mr. Ramos.
I will pass. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Cheryl.
Counselor Contos, I have to tell you that I wanted to mute you when you said it was only 1 out of 4. So hopefully more kids are doing chores because more parents need help. I don't have any other comments. Thank you.
Ms. Becerra.
I was going to say that the 1 out of 4 is my family. Thank you for that, John. No further comments. Thanks.
Ms. Vasika.
Want to echo all the other ladies before me. I was surprised that it was 1 and 4 as well. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
What do you have that little baby doing right now, Ms. Vasika?
My husband he's actually screaming at my husband right now.
Okay, that's a chore. That works.
That is a chore.
Yeah. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you so much. I'm a full-fledged adult and I still have chores thanks to my mom. So, gosh, that funny little anecdote. Appreciate that. Also want to echo the sentiments from the mayor. I just, thank you, Missoulians, for caring enough about your community and who's going to be steering it through the next 4 years to cast your ballots. And it's a great honor to continue to serve, and just thank everybody for caring about their community and showing up in big and small ways. And the least you can do is vote. So thanks so much.
And Ms. West.
I can assure you I've almost entirely given over cleaning the bathrooms to my kids. They both have one and I don't have to do it anymore. I also want to remind people that this is Parent-Teacher Conferences Week for MCPS. So make sure to go catch up with your teachers and make sure that all your kiddos are doing well this school year. Thanks.
Thank you. We have no committee reports this evening, nor do we have any new business. Are there any additional items to be referred? Seeing none of those, do we have any miscellaneous communications, petitions, reports, or announcements? Seeing none, as always, I thank you for your service, and we will be adjourned.